All right, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, January 12th, 2022, and we're going to get started here with our pre-market analysis on the S&P 500 futures market. Just to go through yesterday, this was kind of what we were talking about, right? So we came into the morning, we talked about the fact that the lows from yesterday were really printing what looked to be like a huge reversal candle when we looked at the daily, we looked at the weekly. Everything was looking pretty strong from there. However, I mentioned that we were in our downtrend still, making lower highs, we're making lower lows. The first thing we needed to see the bulls to do was to find some really strong momentum to the upside and to start kind of crunching through all the resistance we had up above. So we were pretty much sellers coming into the morning until we could find that support. And anybody who was here for our pre-market yesterday would have been here to see that we talked about two levels that we were watching to hold. The first area, and I don't remember the exact number, might have it highlighted in here somewhere. Um, our first area was up here. So yesterday we talked about the 4250 level. We talked about that swing high back here right around 45, 46. And I believe I said that as we pull back here, that might be one of the first levels that would make sense to hold. The next level we talked about, and it's pretty crazy because the level itself is what held to the tick. We said we had 50% of the previous day sitting here at, what was the number? 46.27 quarter. And so there was a little bit of a range. We said that 50% of the whole push down, I believe, was 46.30. We had that swing low there at 46.27 quarter. And there were a couple of other things right there. And so the next level we were interested, or at least we expected there to be a potential hold, was 46.27 quarter to I think 46.32. We talked about it being a 5 point range. That little area there would be the next area. If the bulls were going to be strong, we would expect to see the bounce. And that's why I tell people, if we are short, and if you were short out of the open here yesterday, take some profit in front of that zone, because it's very possible we could find a bounce right out of there, and at least you would get some profit off of there before it came back up to your entry. Sure enough, came right into 27 quarter, and from there we've had this huge rip. So the bounce happened right about midway through our session, and the crazy thing is we kind of were calling it in real time. So when we came down to the bottom, and I'll try to wrap this up really quickly, but I just think this is a great thing to cover. We came down to this 27 quarter, and many of you in the room remember when we made this double bottom just in front of 27 quarter. In fact, it was right in that range that we were expecting the bounce, expecting a potential bounce from. When we got this double bottom and we got the signals I was seeing, I told everybody this might be it. They might just hold 30, and we could potentially get a rip all the way back to the top end of the range. And then what happened was we got this is something that happens all the time, which is why I'm bringing it up. A lot of times you have a level, you have the price come down into your level, an expectation of a hold. The market holds it. It does something like this, a double bottom, gives you a really nice pattern. In fact, this is not like a textbook double bottom because it's not to the tick, but you get what I mean, right? Comes down, tries to retest the level, bounces out, gives us a really strong indication that we might jump out of here. Now, this is what I've been bringing up for, I don't know, a few weeks now, maybe going at the end of last year, we kind of emphasized this as well. A lot of times we get a signal. We get a really beautiful pattern for a potential bounce or a potential resistance for a pullback. And the market goes, it turns, it comes all the way back to that signal. It breaks it by a few ticks or a few points, and then it goes. And usually when it ducks down and it comes down and breaks it by a little bit, that's when you get an additional bullish pattern, and then the market, or in this case a bullish pattern if we were looking at a pullback or a resistance level, it would be right, it would be the pullback. So comes down, breaks that low by a few, I think 2 or 3 points, hits our level to the tick. Remember yesterday we had a 50% of the previous 4 hour coming right across here, comes right into it, and then from there, just look at this rip that ends up happening. They do try to bring it right back. They hold, and now here we are. We've come all the way back up. So look at the low from yesterday, 27.25. We are now all the way up over 100 points from the low of yesterday. So incredible market. I've spent way too much time reviewing yesterday. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we're dealing with this morning. And I will do, let's look at it from the 60-minute perspective here. So let's go take a look at what we're dealing with this morning. Remember this right here, this line, this range, we came from up here. And we said if we got this drop from 87 to just about 46.64, we could expect maybe from this area, we would now drop that far. And I mean, doesn't really get much better than that. Got a maybe 10 points in front of that range and bounced out. So we'll get rid of that. And let's take a look at where we are in this grander scheme. So, right, we found the support down the day before yesterday. We pushed up from the day before yesterday, pulled back to a 50% retrace of that leg right there. And this is what I said yesterday. In fact, in the pre-market, I said, wouldn't be too surprising to see the market pull back to the 50% retrace, which was 46.30. Remember, 46.27 was the low. And then bounce out to push higher. And look at what the high of the overnight session was before we actually pulled back a little bit, the 27 extension within a point or two there, right? So right from pull back to the 50, launched to the 27 and started pulling back. So again, that's why I like taking profit right in front of that level just for my first exit there a lot of times, just in case they don't actually get through there. So beautiful reaction there. And here we are. So the bulls have come back into power. We've pushed past the 61.8 retracement of the whole push down from the all-time high. And basically we have a couple levels that we're dealing with here. Now yesterday, you guys remember I said we do have these two levels on the chart here. There are two levels here, 47.14.50. And then remember that major swing high was 15.75 over here. That was the first level we needed to get through. Now notice where the market found trouble and pulled back. Not only the 61.8, but right there by that 14.50, 15.75 area. Found trouble, pulled back. And then we said if we get through that, we need to get through the top end of this chop box right here, right? And sometimes what happens is they can get through the bottom end, but then they come up here and they fail. Well, look at what just happened. This just happened within the last half hour. All right, so the market came up right to our next expected level of resistance, broke it by a few ticks, which the high of that chop block did break it by a few ticks up back here, and is now finding some trouble. So if we can get through that level there, we now have two other things that I'm really watching here. So this is a heads up. For the upside, we have two levels of contention that I think are relevant. Now we have the other eye level that I must have drawn on the chart. I don't know, maybe a few weeks earlier. Let's take a look. Yeah, it must have been back at mid-December here. We have this line on here. That might be an issue because you can see the market came up to that level in the past and actually violently sold off from there. So there's a possibility, but what I'm looking at is not that level, but these two levels right here. This swing low at just about 47.46, 47.47, and then this little area right here around 47.64.50, 64.50. Those two levels to me would be the potential resistances. And then if they can get through that top end right there, and let's just say right around 47.70 here, it's pretty much right back up to the all-time high. And we did draw in our major eye level kind of at the top end here at 97.75. And you never know. Look at how many times the market came up to that level and failed. So if they do come up there, there is always a possibility they play around right there, maybe break at a point and fail, just like they did multiple times for multiple days in the past. If they can jump through there and test through that all-time high, we're back up into the clouds for who knows what above. On the flip side of things, if we don't get a continued bullish push here, we have to consider what we have below us. And what we want to talk about here is there is potential that the market could pull back from where we are right now, find support off of one of the levels we have below us, and continue to chug. The question is, what level is going to hold here for that continued bounce? There's arguments for every single one, right? So we're going to have to go ahead and just see what happens as they pull back. There's a beautiful lineup here at this 50% of the previous 4 hour at 88.50. That right there to me looks really nice. It is just about a 50.61.8 of the smaller leg here from yesterday's low up to our overnight high, sitting right around that 50 to 61 area, right off this previous resistance, which was, remember, this is a 60-minute chart. We can't see if they maybe came up to this level, played around on the bottom end, and then came above, played around on the top end. It's hard to see on this chart, but definitely some strong resistances here from yesterday's overnight session. Some good support all the way back at the beginning, the first week of January there, and then even a hold here the next day as well. So there is a bunch of stuff going on there. I like where it is. Maybe that's where they pull back and bounce from. Again, nobody knows exactly which level is going to hold. So we've got a couple things below us to watch for that potential bounce. And then again, if they don't find support, we're going to have to go ahead and jump in short and off the back end of one of these levels and look for, that deeper retracement. Just keep in mind that the current leg that we just basically retraced to the max here is pretty much over with. If they break below the current low that we made back here, maybe they do the same thing. They get a good reaction from that low. The market comes back, breaks it by a few ticks, and then bounces for the larger. You never know if something like that could occur. And we do have a really nice level there, right around 63 to 67 for a little 4-point range down here for another potential bounce if they break through that low as well. You never know if that can hold. And then any deeper is going to bring us into a retest of that major swing low back there. If that ends up breaking, we'll come back and reconsider. That's going to be now almost a 200 or just about a 200-point push from where we are right now. And so probably going to have plenty of time if they really do sell off and get through some of these levels. We'll have plenty of time to consider what we have below us. So that's what we're looking at this morning. I'll do a quick review of all the time frames to see if there's anything from a divergence perspective that's giving us a clue for one direction over the other. And then we'll jump down to the short time frames and go to our member section and start looking for trades. So real quickly here, remember our quarterly is still staying strong. Our monthly is in that situation, right? We've got that bottleneck or whatever you want to call it, where RVI makes lower highs, lower lows, price makes higher highs and higher lows. Essentially, eventually, this type of pattern has to break one way or the other. But we do have that really nice bullish divergence. And then the weekly, and this is what I was talking about when I said that huge wick to the downside to that major low we saw on this pullback. On the weekly, you can see huge wick to the downside. And again, I said if it closes the way it looks right now, got a beautiful bullish divergence here off that pullback that we saw, and a beautiful bullish looking candle. So weekly, in my opinion, despite the bearish signals from the highs, has a beautiful bullish continuation pattern. So weekly, monthly, quarterly, and daily all, in my opinion, look really, really strong. You see on the daily here, this candle is what we were looking at yesterday morning. This is what we looked at. The daily had a bullish divergence off that low. The 4-hour had a bullish divergence off that low. The weekly had the bullish argument. Again, the weekly candle had a lot of time to actually close. We still have another day or two here, 3 days, but weekly had a bullish argument. So everything was pointing to higher yesterday. The problem was we were in that downtrend, and I told everybody, first things first, we need to break through some levels above before I have any faith in what the charts are kind of hinting at. And so that's ended up what happening. We got the bullish follow through after we pulled back, remember, right to 50% of the previous day there and launched out. So beautiful level to hold for higher. Doesn't really get much better than holding to the tick at the 50% retrace level, and then going up and finding resistance right at the 27 extension of that leg. Doesn't really get much more textbook picture perfect than that. So our high time frame's looking great. Our 4-hour also looking pretty strong here. Not really, from the weekly and the daily, definitely don't see any signs of exhaustion in the current push. 4-hour also arguably not seeing much exhaustion up here either. So there is a little bit of a bearish potential going on from the current high. So I'll have to watch that. But the 4-hour also, in my opinion, looks pretty strong. And if we look at that previous 4-hour candle, look at that huge wick to the downside and then the close right back at the open of that candle and then this bullish bar afterward. So the 4-hour, just from that perspective as well, also looking pretty strong. And then the 60-minute here, we also do have that potential little hiccup pattern off the current overnight high, but everything, there's that pullback from the 4-hour candle we just looked at with a bullish divergence, really strong recovery, and now to new highs. So everything to me looks pretty strong here. Of course, anything's possible. So even though we're finding a little resistance and some bearish exhaustion on this high right now, I do think even though we have that, I do think things look strong and we're going to go higher. The market could just pull back from this overnight high that we made and start retracing. Again, anything's possible. So I'll leave it at that for anyone watching out in YouTube, and we're going to jump down to the members section here, go to our short time frames, and see if we can get some trades here going into the open. So I will see everybody tomorrow. Take care.